Hello, Jory Hearn from Tagged Out Taxidermy. So today's project is I have an open mouth bear here. This is for a rug, it's a rug shell. And what I want to do is I want to alter this so it's closed mouth. This is a pretty easy project if you know how to do it. If you don't, and you've never done it before, it can be kind of a pain. The other thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to put an artificial nose on. Now this nose here I got from True Fit Taxidermy, and it's a pretty good nose. So let's go ahead and get started on this. The first thing I want to do is kind of determine where I want my cuts to be. I like to be able to go back with my cut as far as I can so that I have a nice gradual transition when I close this mouth. So when I take the top foam to meet the bottom foam. So what I like to do is I like to kind of find a spot that's just in front of the eyes, so that I'm not going to be cutting actually through my eye area, I guess, in here. So I'm going to go probably a ½ inch in front of the eye. And I'm going to make a mark. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of draw that line down to where this lower eye bone area, my line is below that, just barely. And I'm going to look down the muzzle and I'm going to do that opposite side. And I like to make just a little bit of a mark here. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to make sure that when I make my cut, I'm going below the eye. So then it works pretty good to take and go a ½ inch to an inch, depending on how you want to do it, from this line forward. And then what I'm going to do is, on this one, it's such a small nose on this that I might have to go more than an inch, but we'll see. I'm just going to draw a line there. And I think that's going to be pretty good. So then what I want to do is make a line straight back from the corner of this mouth forward. So it's just like that. And then wherever these lines intersect, that's where my cut's going to end. And also when I like to make this line too, because that's where we're going to make our cut this way. And then when we close this jaw, we're going to clean all this out inside of the top jaw so that it actually goes over this foam here. And then we'll glue it all together. So let's go ahead and make some cuts. Okay, so that's our first cut. The second cut obviously is going to be right here. I'm not too worried about being off, but I think what I'm going to do is just turn it around so that I can hit it from this side as well. There we go. That's a piece that I wanted to take out. So now we're going to set this piece aside for right now, and we're going to go ahead and work on the top part of the bear. This foam here is not going to be needed, so I'm just going to I'm gonna cut this chunk off, and what I'm gonna do is stay away from the lip line so that I don't mess that up. I'm just gonna cut a big chunk off here. The next thing I want to do is take a knife, and I'm going to make a groove right along this lip line so that I can start to clean that area out. Now I'm going to go with my knife, and I'm going to go from the inside of the jaw to my cut that I made. I'm just going to start cleaning that out. I don't like to go this way and pop that out because you can distort this lip line. Then we'll just start cleaning all this out. It works pretty good just to stick your knife in and put leverage on it, and a lot of that will just pop right off. And where this, if you see this corner of the mouth, I'm just going to go past that a little bit to give me room to bring my jaw down. Now, we'll have to, when we go to start putting this together, we'll have to kind of clean off some of this corner here so that we can pivot this down. And then this piece right here will have to fill with foam. This piece here will have to be filled with a 2-part foam. Now we'll just kind of test fit this and see. I think we got about enough out of this to be able to do a test fit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to evenly cut some of this off so that we can pivot that. You see that? Okay, so you can see we're going to have to cut a little more out of this so that that can come down. And also on an open jaw, when the bear opens his mouth, it stretches this corner of the mouth, so it's actually wider than what it would be if the mouth was closed. So what I like to do is, and instead of cutting this off and losing my shape, I'm actually just going to try and widen this so it fits over this foam here. As you go to test fit and everything, you just got to keep playing with it. And what I found is I need to take a little more off this slope here. And it's starting to come along pretty good. The one thing I need to do is I need to trim this up a little bit now so that I can get this foam here to fit inside the mouth. You see it's just a little bit larger. Not much, only a little bit. But you can see it's coming along pretty close. If I was going to turn this into a slack jaw, this would be the same process that I would do as well. So you got to remember, when a bear closes its mouth, most of this area in here will actually be inside the mouth, and it will show a little bit of this, but it's okay to sand some of this lower lip line when you're altering this so that it will fit inside of this mouth, the top jaw. One thing I like to do is I like to come through with my knife, and I want to score kind of where I think is going to be hidden inside the top part of the jaw. That way, as I'm sanding and everything, I don't go too far. And I'm just going to take my knife and start tapering this. I'm getting pretty close. I'm really liking the way this is coming out. Now also, because this is an open mouth, this lip tends to be sticking out more than what it would be if it was closed. But I'm going to show you how to fix this. Now you can see our angle on this form. If we were to take this top jaw and bring it all the way down to where it fits in there, we're going to have kind of a weird looking mannequin. It's going to come up and then it's going to drop way down to the nose, and it just does not look right. So there's a couple ways to fix that. One way is to cut just above the plywood and to bring this up to meet this. So what we would do is we'd get our angle right for our top jaw so it doesn't look goofy, and then we would go ahead and cut this and bring this up to match the top jaw, and that would change our angle to what we want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to get this about where I want it, the top jaw about where I want it, and then I'm going to take and I'm going to actually shave this foam down to match this, the top lip of the bear. Because the reason I'm going to do that is because this is designed for an open mouth, and this lip line's all wrong for what we're looking for anyway. So and there's a lot of extra foam in here to work with. So we can actually go ahead and shape this to what we need. So now that I got this pretty much how I want it for now, I'm going to go ahead and pin that in place. I'm going to eyeball it and make sure everything's lined up right. Now that I got everything lined up right, what we're going to do is come in with our foam, and we're going to tape all this off, and we're going to foam that. If you rough this up and take this wax coating off, your foam that you pour is going to be stuck to that. Now my desire is not to change the girth of this muzzle. If we have to do that, we will do it after we get everything how we want it. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this. And I don't like using staples to hold stuff on. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this all taped off. Make sure as you are putting duct tape on that you don't change the angle of your muzzle here. Make sure it all stays the same. So after I get this all taped up, obviously there's no way to pour your foam in. Scalpel. I'm just gonna open a spot, and then I'm gonna get a little piece of tape ready so that I can cover that before the foam starts pouring out. And I'm going to stick it over here on this head and so I can just pull it off real quick and it's not going to get dirty. So now we'll go ahead and get our foam ready. It's always a challenge when you're doing your foam to make sure that you get the right amount so you don't get too much or not enough. It's always better to have a little more because you want to be able to make sure that this foam actually kind of puffs out this tape a little bit. That way we can always take it down, but it's a lot harder to fill in a little bit than it is to take away after it's all set up. When you get your foam, read the directions. It's pretty easy to do, but one thing I like to do is to kind of shake my foam a little bit. Just make sure it's mixed up. It doesn't really separate that much, but I've noticed some companies' foam does kind of separate a little bit, and you'll get like a crystallized foam once it's set, and I don't like that. In fact, if your foam comes out kind of crystallized, you're going to have to redo it. Sometimes if your foam is old or it gets froze or ends up getting too cold, it'll do that crystallizing thing. Or if you leave your cap off your foam, it'll go flat, sort of like a soda or something like that. So always make sure you put your lids back on. And foam is just a 50-50 mix. You can either just pour it in your cups and set them beside each other and kind of eyeball it, or you can use a scale. I used to use a scale until I kind of got the hang of it. something to note, you can pour these two together and they won't kick until you actually stir it. So, and once it gets stirred, you better get working with it because it'll start kicking pretty fast. So now that I got everything ready, I'm just going to start mixing this up. This foam here is from Taxidermy, and it's pretty good foam. It doesn't kick super fast, but once to know that it's mixed properly, it'll start turning kind of like almost like Coke colored. I'm not sure the pounds on this, but it's pretty thick. I really like Research's foam as well because Research's foam, it kicks a lot faster and it's easier to pour because it's more of a liquid consistency. But it's also, when it sets, it's not quite as dense as this. So you probably can see this starting to rise in there. So before it gets to the top, I'm going to put my tape over it, and it'll spew out of this like crazy. I mean, it'll really start coming out. And the reason I like to put tape over it is so that I can make sure that it's actually getting squeezed into every little crease and crevice that I need it to. Sometimes if you don't put tape over it, you can see it's coming out that side too. If you don't, and it's coming out the nose, just below the nose, which is good. Sometimes if you don't have something to restrict the flow, it won't press itself into all the areas that you need it to. And because we didn't rough this form up, we're going to be able to take this excess foam and just break it off. This wax coating will definitely help with that. To note about foam is if you are working with it on like a rainy day or an overcast day, it does, or even like a super cold day, it will affect the way this foam works. You always want to make sure that you keep your foam in an area that's fairly warm, somewhere where it's not going to freeze or just get too cold or too hot. If your foam is extremely warm, it'll kick a lot faster and it'll work pretty fast. The problem is too, like if your foam, from what I've noticed, like if your foam kicks really fast, it tends to do weird things. Sometimes it'll crystallize, sometimes it will be extremely brittle. So at this point, I think it's pretty much ready to start taking apart. I like to pull my foam off the tape and then go ahead and pull the tape off. There's one spot here where I poured it in from that actually had, for some reason when I pulled the foam off, it created a little divot there. And that's okay, because a lot of that is going to be shaped and trimmed down anyways, and if we have to, we can clay it, or we could probably put a little bit of foam in there. Most likely we'll just carve it down. So now you can see on the front here where I allowed the foam to fill in all these creases in these areas that were pretty much divoted where that lip was. And you can see we kind of have like a major Roman nose there. And all that's going to be taken down probably with a rasp or, you know, something. You can carve it with a knife. I like to use a rasp. I'm just going to kind of take that down now. That way I can start to get my shape and I'm not distracted when I'm doing shaping the rest of my nose. So as I'm getting the foam off, I like to just make sure that I'm getting my general shape of my bear, and I'm not worried about the nose area because we're gonna go ahead and pull that nose off and put the artificial nose on. But I want to get a general shape. Now this is a female, a sow. And I want to make sure that I don't end up having like a boar nose when I do this. When they're small like this, there's a very small difference between them, but there is a difference. So I like to use a good reference photo when I'm shaping my nose. Now, what we have to do now is to change this lower lip line so that it doesn't look as if we have an open mouth or kind of a, you know, just a little bit of the lips are parted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this edge off here and I'm going to transition it up into the upper lip. So that's a little closer to what I'm looking for. When you're doing your nose, you want to take note that this particular nose has more length on the top than it does the bottom. So when you install this and you make your cut, just make sure that you take note of that. And the reason that it's designed that way is because of the bridge of this nose slants down. Now when I do mine when I cast my noses, I do them a little bit different, but this still works. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my nose on the form, and I'm going to use my eyes and make sure that it's level with the existing nose. And I'm just going to make a mark where it's going to hit on the foam. And I'm going to do a side profile. And I'm going to set it up there and get it lined up with the mark I made earlier. And I'm just going to kind of draw a line there. And I'm going to make these intersect. You can see what I got going there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of the bear. Then I'll make sure that I kind of round these off and get them to meet. Just squaring these off, this cut off, and making it even on both sides. I'll put my nose up there. And you can see that is almost perfect. So it looks pretty good. If you do see a spot, say your nose is leaning one way or the other, you can take your flat file and just level that out a little bit. So now when attaching your nose to your form, there's a couple ways that you can do it. You can hot glue it. You can use Bondo. Or you can use Magic Smooth. Each application works because Magic Smooth is pretty sticky and it's easy to work with. But if you're trying to get this done fast, you're going to either want to use Bondo or hot glue. And believe it or not, hot glue works fairly well. Hot glue works well enough that when you glue this on there, you're going to have a hard time breaking it off. But whatever method you're going to use, you want to make sure that you rough up this plastic on the nose. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that with a stout rougher. So I think for this particular nose, we're going to try hot glue. I'll get my hot glue heated up. We got our glue gun hot. What I'm going to do is just I'm going to put a little bit on the back here of the nose. I'll put some on the bottom. And I'm going to push this in and work it around. And then I want to make sure that I have it pressed all the way back so that it lines up. It's important to kind of move the nose around so that you can squish all that hot glue into the little creases we made when we roughed it up. Now what we got to do is figure out where we want our bottom lip to be. Using reference photos, you can kind of get a pretty good idea. But also by test fitting the skin, that's going to help a lot as well. The first thing I want to do though is I want to trim this foam that's up and sticking out from my artificial nose. So I'm just going to take a scalpel and just trim that off. So like that. To draw a line. And how I want my lip to look. So something similar to that. And then what I'm going to do is take my scalpel. I'm going to actually cut that out because I want to have that spot already slotted. So that when I go to clay it or use magic sculpt or whatever I'm going to do to reshape that bottom lip, I know where I'm going to end up stopping. The next thing I like to do is take a screwdriver and I want to stick it into that cut, and I'm just going to I stick it in kind of at like a 45 degree, and then I'm just pressing that foam down. So I go in and then I press the bottom lip foam down. And when I get to the corner of my mouth, I'm not going to go all the way back because I want to get my skin and I want to test fit that so that I can find out exactly where that corner of my mouth on the skin is going to land. That way I'm not too far forward or too far back. The skin for this is actually still in the tan, so I'm gonna pull that out today and test fit that, and then oil it and get it ready. And tomorrow I'll go ahead and mount this. So that's what you end up with. So because this is a real high spot here, I'm going to go ahead and start taking that down. And what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to file right in the center of the ridge of my nose and kind of create a line down the center. The reason I do that is it gives me a good reference point for the center of the nose and the face and everything. And then I can get my depth, and then I can work out from there. So after that, I'm just going to take my sandpaper. You can use a knife or a file or something too if you so desire. So we got our rug shell pretty much where we need it to be to start our clay work. And we'll go ahead and get the eyes set, and we'll clay in our details. And so it's pretty cool to be able to take something like this and turn it into something like this. Anyways, I hope this video helps you guys. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comment section. Anyways, if you want to see more videos, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and we'll be putting out some more videos on actually mounting a rug shell.